I mean, banks have been evolving with emerging technology, right? But the last couple of years have been particularly exciting with generative AI and whatnot. We all think we're experts now pretty much, but we'll leave it to the real ones. And so this distinguished panel, we hope, will answer what the innovations and digital solutions for an AI-dotted financial services future will look like. So all of you, thank you very much for being here. And Professor Arya Kumar, if I could start with you. To start by laying out the context of where India stands as far as our artificial intelligence capabilities are concerned. We just heard, Mr. Sanyal talk about how this is India's decade and the decades to come, and we must make the most of this opportunity. So where do we currently stand, whether it is talent, whether it is workforce, where does our advantage lie?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think AI is going to play a very critical and vital role as far as the technology and its implications to the Indian economy are concerned. We've been talking about becoming third leading economy soon in another 3 years or so. And technology. Today we say mobile technology, mobile people, mobile money, mobile banking. And in all this, the core part would remain technology. We are moving fast. When I look at the Indian economy today, as far as the skills are concerned, school level students are talking of AI. The college level, they are in a big burst in terms of AI-driven startups coming up. Ernst & Young, as well as the other major reports which have come on a skill set as far as India is concerned, the AI factor as far as acceptance is concerned, we are moving very fast. As far as the research and academia is concerned, we are the 5th largest as AI is concerned. We need to put in a lot of, I'll say, further effort. Although Niti Aayog has come out with the research leading to almost 10,000 crores of investment in AI-driven technologies, but still, on a research front, I would say we spend almost just 0.7% of GDP, which has to go up if we really would like to make use of this opportunity at this point of time. So I'm sure that we are ready for moving ahead very fast. Skill set is ready with us. The deep technology, we need to do much more than what we have been doing today. And the research-driven investment, be it the banks, be it the industry, be it the research institutions, be it the academia, all have to join hands. And therein, the major push in terms of a research, which is a purposive research, which is a research which is giving a direct impact on a GDP, has to happen. Thank you.
No doubt, and you spoke of collaboration as well, and you spoke about the need to build that skill force. Let me ask the other academic mind on the panel here. When you think of a country like India with its diverse opportunities and challenges, both for a 1.4 billion strong population, what to your mind is the best possible integration of artificial intelligence in the field of finance? Because for a vast segment of the population, even to this day, financial inclusion, real financial inclusion, remains a challenge. So what could artificial intelligence do to change the game?
So artificial intelligence can do a lot of things, but whether it will be done in India in next decade, I'm a bit pessimistic. Technologies-wise, we have done huge, but AI and technology are two different things in a way. So technology-wise, we have done UPI, is like, fabulous job. We are the leader in the world. But AI needs data and algorithm come in together. And this is where we are lacking. And the way that our structure is right now, it will lack probably in a big way. But there is a lot of scope. So already UPI, if you can see, it's increasing the credit growth, even the financial inclusion, the fintech companies, the payment revenue-based financing is increasing a lot. So it's getting there, and it will continue to do so. But whether we'll have an exponential push through AI, I'm not so sure.
But what to your mind, sure, we'll take some time getting there, but what is the best possible integration of AI into the world of financial services today that could unlock opportunities for a country like India?
So the major obstacle we have is 2 or 3. One is, if you look at the US market, the best brains of AI are actually in the industry. And industry creates the major innovation mainly because I can create an algorithm, but I don't have enough data to train. That's where Google, Facebook, Amazon get the lead. India is still enormously lagging with the collaboration of industry and academia. So for example, if I approach a bank today, like Chase Bank has done in US, Wells Fargo has done, what they have done, they have basically anonymized the entire data for last 20 years. And any researcher can come in their server and test their algorithm, and they can do a lot of things. So this kind of environment, unless this comes, and I can create an algorithm. Does it work? I don't know. And that's where the major problem is. At the same time, the financial sector sits on tons of data, and for them, because they are bogged down in so many day-to-day stuff, for them to innovate is very tough. So the marriage somewhere has to happen.
Well, let me ask the gentleman sitting next to you from State Bank of India, is it that tough really, to integrate technology into banking? What has State Bank of India been doing in the last couple of years when this generative AI has come about? When we think of generative AI, we immediately think chatbots. But the application surely is much beyond that.
No, let me first say that I don't completely agree with Professor Ghosh here, because yes, algorithms are easy to develop and any data scientist can do that. Training the models requires data, like he said, but the data is now available in abundance, largely for the fact that a lot of data gets generated, much more than what we've generated in the preceding all the years that data has been generated. So there is enough and more data. We just have to find a way of making use of that data. So in SBI, the way we are looking at generative AI is first of all these large language models on which generative AI is based, or vice versa, whichever way you look at it, most of them are offshore. They are not in India. Now we are seeing an emergence of LLMs in India. You interviewed Bhavesh also the day he announced, this
well, those
LLM
are at very
model.
early stages, yes.
Very early stages,
yeah.
but so I do agree with Professor Arya Kumar when he says that, deep tech has been missing in India. So we have really lacked a lot of research and deep tech related work. In SBI, what we started to do was analytics. Yes, we set up quite a few years ago. The data science practice evolved to substituting and replacing the statistical models which were developed by statisticians by AI models which are developed by data scientists, because we don't have any dearth of data. So we have enough and more data to train our models, to make them work. And we also managed to come up with a framework to make sure that it works within the guardrails of being responsible as far as the AI is concerned, also making sure that it is ethical. It is inclusive. It doesn't have biases. It doesn't have this whole notion of concept drift, that it intends to do something, but over time, the concept starts drifting and it starts producing another set of outcomes, like what the Deputy Governor and even the Governor in the IBA conference highlighted, that don't excessively depend on algorithmic lending. So we keep calibrating and recalibrating. Now the way we are looking at generative AI is that, one, of course, from the point of view of cybersecurity, which I'm sure we probably might be discussing here, but because these models are all offshore, we don't have too much of a source code in India. The best thing that anybody can do today is to only run some use cases, led POCs. But in the medium term, at least our aspiration is, one, for the fact that we've invested early on into analytics, data science, and AI. Yeah. And in fact, one of our models already has a patent, an AI model for fraud detection. And we have multiple such models, which are performing very well. One of our aspirations is to actually develop our own large language model, which is specific to banking domain. Why depend on ChatGPT? Why depend on somebody else's?
So is SBI building their own SBI GPT?
We aspire to do that. We aspire to, like Bloomberg GPT you're familiar with. It is a domain-specific GPT. There is another, set of GPTs which are domain-specific. So why should we just worry too much about, ChatGPT writing poems and essays and all of that? We could, with our set of data, I'm sure we can develop our own large language models. And to that extent, what we did recently, we have partnered with IIT Bombay. We have set up a center for data science and analytics, where the primary charter for us is to research, train, and also work on very specific use cases around generative AI, but eventually build the skills to write and develop our own LLMs. Well, this will come. I'm not saying that this is a plan, which is already there, but this is an aspiration that we do have, that eventually we should insource. And one of the risks with AI that we very clearly see, and that is a problem that we saw long back in SBI, is that all of AI talent is insourced. We don't outsource anything because you don't want anything to go wrong with your data security controls, privacy, and of course the new norms that we are seeing now.
Hearing how much SBI is doing on the AI front, I wonder why the Deputy Governor this morning was commenting that, often IT budgets are going unutilized at banks. And
not for us.
Not for State Bank of India, just to be clear. But Dr. Chaudhuri, given that you work with a whole host of industries, banking in specific, what is the extent of, the integration of artificial intelligence into day-to-day financial services activities? Mr. Chugh was just telling us about a few of them, but, are all banks as advanced as what some of the work that he's outlining they're doing here?
Yeah, sure. So before getting specifically into banking, in the corporate environment, your first question was that how critical is AI, right? So we foresee that going forward, there will be two types of companies. Those which will embrace AI completely and those which will be out of business. So it is that paramount and it is that critical, and there are no two ways about it. Now, coming back to the questions of the limitations that may exist, right, today, as was being talked about by some of the panelists. So I think with any technology evolution, there will be those limitations. We have gone through those paths, limitations, etc. There also have been hypes. We have seen the Gartner hype cycle. There have been many, many hypes that were created, let's say big data. There have been quantum computing. There have been so many other things, right? Some of them really took off, some of them didn't. But this particular aspect of AI, and why, for example, AI is being talked about so much. AI is not something new, right? It was in the way back in the last century. What is really making the difference? The differences are coming in the form of, now we have abundance of data and varied structure of data, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, different velocity, different formats. So the data is available. Computing power is there. And hardware is not that expensive. So it is not so insurmountable to really build AI capabilities, which used to be the case in the last century. So fundamentally, things have not changed. What has changed is the ecosystem, the infrastructure, some of the peripheral developments, which is facilitating the growth of AI as a technology and as such. But what are the prerequisites, as Dr. Ghosh was alluding to? If you take a step back, some of the real stalwarts in the space, like Andrew Ng and all, they are alluding to a fact that sometimes we might be putting the cart before the horse. What does that mean? That we may not necessarily have the right data ecosystem. And by that, what is meant is whether we have connected data, whether we have high quality data to support really addressing business problems, right? Because eventually it is garbage in, garbage out. You may have the best ensemble model under the sun, but you may not necessarily be able to conclude, infer as decisively if the quality of data and their interconnectedness is not really established in the right way, right? So hence, while the progression on the algorithms and the LLMs will have to continue to happen, for addressing specific use cases, the foundational models will need to be up-trained with specific data sets which have to be of high quality. That's really the crux, right? So even if you are taking the big LLMs, and I'm not sure I was reacting to SBI developing its own LLM, very ambitious, and whether, no, congratulations, you're thinking on those lines, but also whether it's really that crucial, right? Meaning, at the end of the day, there are even if, let's say, we are talking about ChatGPT 4 Turbo, the types of plugins that they are creating, and I'm not talking about only the ChatGPT 4 only, the types of plugins that are being created by Google, Bird, by the Geminis of this world, and the Turbos, and the connectedness that can get introduced with a lot of fintech products, give you a decisive advantage in being able to make some early inroads. Because at the end of the day, investment will come only when success are being seen. So some of the low-hanging fruits will really need to be tapped, right? So I think it has to be judiciously thought through from a strategy standpoint. From a BSFI application standpoint, I think, see, BFSI as an industry has been always, what I've seen, have been one of the pioneers in terms of data-driven inferences and decision-making. BFSI, telecom, healthcare, right? Unlike some of the other sectors which are catching up, like the industry, logistics, and all that. So, it's not that the introduction of or higher cultivation of AI and embracing it are going to necessarily change a lot of use cases, but will be able to address some of those use cases in a most prolific way. For example, taking the point that I was mentioning, some of the statistical models, quote unquote, are getting replaced by some of the more, let's say, more refined predictive analytics oriented models, right? And even though some of those may be machine learning based models. Now think of taking it another level, more deep learning oriented models. If you inculcate, you will be able to improve the efficacy, goodness of fate, etc. in a much better way, right? So that's really should be the thought process. In addition to taking some of the best cross-industry practices and experiences, right? Like, for example, even in the Gen AI space, given that we are no more interacting only on text, we are being able to interact with videos, we are being able to interact with images. These are the inputs. There are lots of opportunities that really get opened up, not only for healthcare, not only for education, not only for manufacturing, but also for the BFSI sector as such.
Well, and that was a very well summarized, thought there. But, let me just step away from the academia of it and into the implementation, Aishwarya. Cards, credit cards as a service, it's an interesting concept that, the industry that you're in, at a time when Indians are increasingly moving away from cards. So this digital aspects of card, how well is the population responded to it? Are there certain segments that are, more positively reacting? Or, generally, what's been your sense in the adoption in the future of this industry?
See, to me, while we started off as a credit cards as a service platform, the power to us is credit accessibility, right? A transactional credit line in my mind is far more powerful than lending to you at your behest every time you come. From a servicing point of view, from an underwriting point of view, from a credit appraisal point of view, it's extremely tedious. And as you go to the bottom of the pyramid, right, it becomes far and fabricated in terms of distribution for you to come up with the right models to lend at scale, which is where transactional credit can be very powerful. So credit cards itself is a very fascinating case study in India, Ritu. Barely about 3.5% Indians own a credit card. Now you compare it to any developing market, you don't want to say US because US and credit in a word don't go together too well, but even a market like Japan, right, there is about 3.7 credit cards per user. Come back to India, yes, UPI is a fantastic form factor, but what we are excited about is UPI on credit. Can underwriting be powerful enough to give your, though be a line of credit, give your milkman a line of credit? Because often, economists are all here, so I'll be swinging to the choir. In every developed nation, structured accessibility to credit is a very important part of economic development, and that's what transactional credit can drive towards. We're talking about AI here. To me, AI is an outcome of data. And today, as Sir rightly said, India is sitting on piles of structured data. 10 years back, we didn't know who were opening bank accounts. We didn't know who were immigrating into this country. Today with Aadhaar, right from benefits distribution, right from your bank account, hell, even your SIM card, right? Everything, there is data sitting over there. Now the conjunction of this data, how well can you use it to create credit accessibility is the real question. A product like UPI alone, how well can it be mined to give a powerful credit line to every trader, every small business owner or a SME in the country are all the real questions that we would love to be answered with AI. Coming back to credit cards, it is somewhere a lifestyle driven product, huge amount of data even within the credit cards that are in the market today, 120 million cards, give or take 3 or 4 transactions a month. Something as simple as risk and fraud, right? AI can play a huge role. How do I show the right offer to you at the right time? That's another place, because these 3.5% Indians are the ones who are booking tickets in airlines. They are the ones who are buying subscription products. They are the higher end of consumption data for the economy, right? And that somewhere is the fulcrum of consumption-led GDP. So with that data, how can we sort of help from a credit cards as a service, from building models, building digital experiences is all that we focus on at Hyperface. But like I said, the core of it will be credit accessibility and transactional credit, Ritu.
And let me pick on what you'd said earlier, only 3.5% credit card penetration, and that is a dismal number for a country of 1.4 billion people. Using artificial intelligence, do you think, are there ways, are there innovative solutions that are emerging to make it a more widespread, more, deeper, bring more deeper penetration of credit cards in the country? If you could give us any use cases or any instances, examples that you've seen where it has worked to deepen the presence.
So we are a credit cards as a service company which helps banks and co-brands create fantastic credit card experiences. Amazon, ICICI co-brand is an example I would love to pull out for all of you. The Pay Later program of Amazon and the credit card program of Amazon, there is a lot more data beyond the typical salary data that banks used to underwrite. And interestingly, in the last 3 years since Amazon ICICI card launched, what ICICI did in 6 years, this partnership has launched as many credit cards. Again, this is pure data, right?
Yeah.
Your consumption data, what you're doing in a platform like Amazon, how can I underwrite it better? How can I credit qualify you better? All these are real use cases in my mind that are creating a difference.
I think we're still talking about the very urban metro population that is saturated, with the consumption of financial services like credit cards. But I'll get back to that.
Sorry, Ritu, even for the financial inclusion aspect, as I was telling you earlier, to me, it all starts with the amount of structured data that we have built in so far. Right from your benefit distribution, your Aadhaar related bank accounts, from your first credit into the bank account to the UPI data that's flowing in. To me, the basic needs are models around those, and as you rightly said, are we asking the right questions to the data? That's how AI can come from. Often AI is seen as a panacea for everything.
Yeah.
Today we have a fantastic digital public infrastructure, right? The API stack of India is a pride. To me, we need to have an equivalent data stack or a data access stack that anybody can come in and read to the data, what Mr. Ghosh was talking about. If we can create a very powerful framework to ask questions or the right questions to the data, just imagine the data that an SBI will be sitting on or an Indian statistical office will be sitting on.
Yeah.
It is about asking questions and building models on top of the data. If a right framework can be created around that, I feel it could be very powerful for a nation like us.
No doubt we have plenty of data, and like you said, asking the right questions to get the right answers is critical. So, Professor Kumar, let me get back to you on that point. Lots of data show that we're working around with, and this proliferation of artificial intelligence into various aspects of financial services, where we're not just talking about chatbots, we're talking about credit underwriting, decision-making, interventions. How do you ensure that bias stays out of it, and we're getting the right output, and that data bias is not leading to certain segments of the population being excluded from being given access to credit?
See, we are sitting on a huge database today when we talk about financial sector as a whole. Now, 4-5 key issues which have to be taken care of when we use AI is the computing power is the one. Having a huge data doesn't help unless you have a high frequency computing power. Second, as Mr. Ghosh was mentioning about the biases in the data. Having a data is the one thing, unless I have got objective data, which can give me a worthwhile decision-making processing, it's of no use. Third major thing which has to be taken care of is the ethical issues in the whole of the AI, which is a very, very vital aspect today. And until the ethics part of it we are very clear, I'm sure, I think, again, the data processing doesn't help me. It would give rise to wrong answers to me. Today we say 60% of the companies are using AI, but 80% of them are using incorrectly because of all these intermediate problems. So my privacy is one, biases in the data is another, computing is a third. Above all, the ethics part would play a very, very vital role as far as the whole data is concerned. So I would say, as he was also rightly saying, that today a lot has been happening in terms of AI applications. The major challenges which are there with the banking system today is, should I collaborate, should I take over, should I develop my own? And all these three issues are inbuilt because of the ethical as a one, security and the privacy as another. And I would fully agree. Without compromising on the security, if I have to develop my own systems like I have developed in the past by having subsidiaries, be it a merchant banking subsidiaries, be it a mutual fund subsidiaries, be it venture fund subsidiaries, all these were developed with the banks because they never wanted to go beyond taking a particular risk. Now when I talk of collaborating in terms of integrating my back-end and front-end systems, I have to be very, very clear that what kind of a risk technologically I am taking. If it is worth for me to invest in a technology as well as the high-end skills, I should do it like a multinational banks. I should not compromise on that. Coming down to Professor Ghosh ideas, I would say we have good coders in India. We have a good algorithm writers in India. They have been playing a very vital role as far as my unicorns from a US are concerned. But computing is certainly a challenge for us. Data privacy is certainly a challenge for us. So I would say my AI applications have to be handled in a very, very sensitive way. And if I take a wrong route, it's going to give me a wrong answers also. So my all models, as was rightly said in the morning also, have to be very, very dynamic with a full protection inbuilt into the system. And until that is put in a place, I'm sure the AI would not deliver me the kind of result I'm looking forward for.
Professor Ghosh, because he constantly referred to you, I'm wondering if you wanted to chip into what he had to say.
No, in general, right, so 2-3 things. Right now in India particularly, I don't say we are actually doing artificial intelligence. What we are doing is a very sophisticated, some amount of intelligent automation of the systems. So that's where we are. In the fintech space and in the financial sector in India, they are way ahead of the curve in generally because like SBI did and some other banks did and the fintechs did, they have invested way ahead. So they are ahead of the curve. But still, we are a very big user and we know how to scale, but we are not innovating. And that's what the problem is. So for example, in credit card, after a long time, I found a very innovative product, which is BNPL, which uses a huge amount of, alternative sources of data to give you credit on the spot. Now, that's a very perfect use of, let's say, AI for financial inclusion. But then the moment data privacy comes in, it goes against the financial inclusion, actually. So we have seen in research that data privacy and financial inclusion doesn't go hand in hand. It actually, because if I don't have the, let's say, tax data, I don't have any other sources of data, it's pretty much you are being able to give me loan based on my call logs, based on my revenue stream. And if data privacy comes and says, no, I cannot share call logs, then what is the bank at the fintech company going to use to figure out my risk profile? And that's when the salaried people doesn't get hurt, but the lower part of the pyramid get hurt because they have to give something. And so there are quite a few research now which shows that data privacy and financial inclusion doesn't go hand in hand.
But, Mr. Chugh, I wonder if you'd want to respond to that. That's quite interesting, coming at a time where you also have the Digital Data Protection Bill, where it's going to become even more complicated for you to use customer data, and you're talking about crores and crores of your customers, and with artificial intelligence, we're talking about biometrics, facial recognition. I mean, we're talking about all kinds of privacy being in the hands of banks like you. Do you think that's going to be a challenge?
It is going to be a journey that we'll have to go through, but I don't think it is a challenge that cannot be addressed.
A challenge for financial inclusion,
No,
like Professor Ghosh
I
said.
think financial inclusion has been, financial inclusion is not something that we will have to start after the Data Privacy Act. Financial inclusion has been going on for the last 70 years. And today we are at a level where, especially with things like micro pensions, micro insurance, India is probably at the highest level of the developing countries in terms of just the penetration. Right? So, and I'm not even talking about bank accounts. That is a problem that has already been solved long ago. So when you look at credit as the only remaining part of inclusion that has to be provided to the bottommost excluded variety, in the absence of data that would have otherwise come from let's say bank statements, and because everybody has bank statements, everybody has started using digital payments in some manner or the other. Yes, the UPI bandwagon is also expanding. It is growing beyond the 300 million to 400 million, and it is expected to go to 500 million in any case. So there is data which is coming in which is reasonably pure. So I don't think it is going to be only necessary to look at some of the surrogate data. And even if it is going to be necessary, I don't think it is going to be a problem of asking for consent in a responsible and ethical manner. So we just have to be sure, and banks have been doing this for a long time. I don't think any banks will mess around with taking consent unwillingly from customers. And therefore...
Then you'll be in violation of the law.
Exactly. So even while the law hasn't got notified as yet,
Not yet, yeah.
in our assessment, I think we'll be compliant right from day one with whatever provisions that the law, is expected to come up with. Because we have been practicing some of that, and I can say this for almost the entire industry, that taking consent from customers has been in practice for a very long time. The excluded lot, like Professor said, yes, there is going to be a process that will have to be followed, but because they have a bank account, because they've started making payments, increasingly more and more digital payments, the access to credit problem will also get solved. And if at all we need any additional data in terms of, let's say, call records or whatever else location data, that can always be obtained with consent.
Aishwarya, I'm wondering, as someone who works with data, near constantly, do you also find that a challenge?
I think I totally agree with what Nitin Bose said. See, the point is when it comes to data, right, we often tend to club it all into one group. What the customer is really worried about is the PII. And, my age, my location, my gender, and my mobile number and email are sacrosanct. If you were a bank and you're going to tell me, hey, you know what, based on your consumption pattern, I'm going to tell you certain offers for you. Or it could be that I'm going to recommend certain banking products for you. By itself, it's not problematic to the customer. The problem is the way it is being articulated and the way it is being sensationalized. Your data is going away. It's not going anywhere. It is sitting very safely within the bank's safe, secure servers as per RBI specifications, and rules are being run in an aggregated basis. Let's remember that. It's not just for one customer. It's for 1 million customers that the data models are being run. I feel as we talk more about AI and data privacy, educating customers on the power of data should go hand in hand, because we are seeing this in payments where the payment engine has moved so fast, but customers are still getting defrauded. Because educating them, I feel, has to go hand in hand. Yeah. Especially the PII data segregation from the data that can be modeled.
Sure. I mean,
just pitch in quickly. See, with the concept of open banking becoming more and more strong, consumer feeling that it's my data, not bank's data, not fintech's data. And that's going to change the game, because as of now, our financial institutions kind of think it's the financial institution data. But open banking basically mandates, and they will down the road, that, as long as customer wish, anybody can get a pie of that data. And that's going to change the game.
An account aggregator is exactly that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you consent to use my data for X, Y, or Z purposes. But, let me step away from it. And Dr. Chaudhuri, I see you nodding. I wonder if you wanted to add something.
To react on this thing.
Yeah.
So the reason for having a very clear governance framework at an early stage for a country like India is critical, right? Let's say European Union have now come up with their governance framework.
Yeah.
Not foolproof, not fully insulated, not complete, but they have been the first to move with this. The reason being that there are areas of vulnerability that they recognized very early, right? White House is very active now at a very nascent stage, but open to deliberations. Sam Altrons of this world are actually going out and preaching for and advocating for this governance framework. So India is at a stage where if we can take some of those best practices, start thinking through it. Like, for example, if you look into the European governance framework and the compliance framework, the more you analyze, you will realize that it is still a little bit broad-based. The more debates and deliberations are going on, you will recognize that these governance frameworks will have to be far more sector-specific.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the nuancical elements of the sectors play a very, very major role.
Yeah. And like Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar said, no more warm and fuzzy words. We need specific outline guardrails.
Correct.
But, if you're touching about the ethics aspect of it, let me ask the professors next to you, if you're building that into the curriculum already, governance, ethics, ethical, responsible use of AI when you're teaching it to your students, what is the importance that is being assigned to it at that level?
See, I would say, so the academic domain is concerned, ethics have to get integrated in all aspects. AI, not only AI, because anybody cannot go in terms of a marathon unless he is ethical. So ethics has to become part and parcel. And today when we talk about Harvard talking about the Gita and management, there is some reason for that. That ethics has to get integrated everywhere. But more so, you see, in a technology domain, if we don't have an ethics, then as Mr. Ghosh was rightly saying, governance becomes very difficult to look at. Suppose there is a selfless driver-driven car and it meets an accident. Suppose tomorrow a major fraud happen in a banking industry. Whom to hold responsible? Unless we have got a governance in a place in terms of checks and balances, we are talking about collaborating with the partners.
So how much emphasis do you lay on that aspect of the use of artificial intelligence in curriculums, in colleges, to prepare the workforce for the skill gap that we have in AI?
We in our institution, BITS Pilani is concerned, let me tell you, some of the courses which are become very popular today are from humanities and psychology. Cognitive sciences and the basics of the ethics. Gita and management is the one course which has become very popular, around 500 students are taking. And surprisingly, last semester I was looking at the data, one of the Christian girl student topped that particular course. So these are something which are very miraculous things which are happening, that the students themselves taking greater interest in terms of integrating the computer ability with the finance, with the humanities. Another great thing which have been happening in a BITS Pilani is, because of minor programs today, every computer science student is taking a finance as a minor, and then he does a CFA. Because they look at the opportunities in a financial sector to be far more lucrative with a technology background.
Yeah.
And then if they do some ethics courses and ethics and AI as a specialized course, I'm sure he's preparing a well-rounded professional to play a vital role in an industry.
Well, speaking of skills, Aishwarya, when you go out to recruit today, and given that artificial intelligence is so widely being used, including generative AI, a relatively newer concept, do you find the requisite skills that you're looking for in the market, or do you often come back disappointed at the lack of skills, that you're looking for?
Oh, you'd be amazed, Ritu, if I tell you about my APM interviews. They'll be like, I'll answer this question, once I'm done, I'll share a note with you. It'll be a beautifully written note till you realize that this is a ChatGPT submission. these kids know how to hack things as well, which is where somewhere what he
So
told
they have
about
the skills.
ethics resonates. Yeah, they do have skills. Let's not doubt this generation. And they are skilled enough to manipulate the AI as well, is my worry. So the AI might have to be the watchdog as well at some point of time, you know. My 15-year-old son says he goes to ChatGPT to ask for ideas, you know. That's the generation we are bringing up. So ethics needs to be ingrained in the user as well as the AI is how I look at it.
Well, yeah, you know, on a more serious note, of course, none of these questions were prepared by ChatGPT. But let me ask you, Professor Ghosh, since you know, every time we talk about artificial intelligence, we're talking about skills and workforce, there's always that immediate fear that comes in the mind of people, and for valid reason, that it'll threaten jobs. We have one of the largest payment companies in the country that has recently announced that there's been a slight reduction in the workforce because they were able to see the transformative power of artificial intelligence in the use of financial services. How real is that threat, and how large is the skill gap that is needed to be filled to ensure that, you know, jobs are created faster than jobs are lost?
So the total number of jobs may not reduce drastically. It's a reallocation, the way I see it. So there are certain kind of jobs will go because we are in the midst of huge amount of automation. But that will create some new kind of job. The major problem is not that. The major problem is we in the academic institution are struggling what to skill the new, we still don't know what to skill, to be honest, because of two things. One, so India did IT, they captured very well because IT is a unidirectional skill set. AI is a multidisciplinary skill set, and Indian academic institutions are notoriously bad in collaboration. You know, to be very honest, IIM Bangalore, IISc doesn't collaborate, right? So that creates a major problem because today, if you look at the top technology firm, they hire as many engineers as economists or as historians, right? So we need that multidisciplinary skill set. So that is one. Second is because our academic institutions are dominantly teaching-based institutions, we are a user. So somebody needs to do the research and then I will bring it to the classroom. And I am not doing that. The US is doing that. China is doing that. And that's creating the major problem in skilling. I'm waiting for the next material to come for me to, because if you look at IIT, IIM, we are majorly teaching institute, not research institute at all. And that creates a problem that what do I skill? If I don't do research on this topic, I have nothing new to skill my students unless somebody else created the material and I can communicate much faster. That's the problem. Like in my class, what happens is when I teach machine learning, a lot of the time students are sleeping. And I don't blame them because whatever I'm saying, they already know that from Coursera or something, they already know. So unless I'm throwing something new for them, it's very hard to glue them in the class. So skilling is becoming a tough choice for us. And the third problem is we also don't know what is coming tomorrow because technology is changing so fast that I'm training something now and next year it's getting obsolete. So I think that today's youth, particularly who are in the age group of not necessarily the youth, around 35, 40 age, where the technology firm started to ask whether I need this guy or not, a constant upskilling is there. And that constant upskilling is not 5 yearly. It's probably every 6-8 months you have to go and reskill because so many new things are coming. And this is a challenge for both for the students as well as for us.
No doubt. I mean, the pace of technology is a challenge for stakeholders, for academia, for industry, for the regulator, everywhere.
Let me just add to Professor Ghosh's idea. This reskilling, learning, relearning, that's a main domain today. I would like to especially highlight, we introduced a work-integrated learning programs in a BITS Pilani in 1989. You'll be surprised to know, today we have 45,000 students, working professionals, while being in the job, pursuing higher degrees. These are the ME programs, they are BS programs, and most popular programs are data science, AI applications. These are most common programs which most of the industries are demanding today. So I'm fully with Professor Ghosh in terms of reskilling, relearning has to be a continuous process.
Yeah.
Knowledge is becoming obsolete at a very fast pace.
Yeah.
And until we keep doing that with our each employee, and that's a major challenge to the banks today too. When
Yeah.
we're looking at the technology induction, how fast we can reskill our own employees has to be the greatest challenge.
Well, let me complete this jobs and skilling debate with you, Mr. Chugh. As State Bank of India, as one of the largest employers in the country, just tell us how artificial intelligence has impacted, your employee workforce because of costs and efficiency, improving. I'm wondering if you're going to hire at the same pace, whether you're going to go to an IIM or a BITS Pilani to hire, or are you looking elsewhere to hire? Are you seeing the requisite skills?
See, data scientists, we do hire from the market because
Do you go to IIM Bangalore? He says, the students already know everything. He has to keep up.
Historically.
Not in future.
But I think the way we are looking at AI in the bank is that it still has a lot of headroom available for efficiency unlocks, and that will continue to happen. Business models are obviously also transforming within the bank and in the industry, and as that change takes place, AI is going to go through this whole phase of being an assistive technology, which will improve the efficiency and unlock a lot of productivity gains, to being an augmented technology where it will start supplementing the effort of, let's say, coders or product managers, customer service agents.
Sure.
That can anyway come even as assisted. And eventually, and we are in no hurry to get there, that some tasks will get performed autonomously also. So rather than jumping straight into an autonomous role for AI, we want to go through this whole journey and learn also along the way, and keep releasing those unlocks.
It's difficult to predict, but currently, in the last couple of years, what has been the impact of the wider adoption of technology on your hiring pattern?
Oh, huge. I mean, I'm not talking about our headcount, I think, is by and large, consistent for the last few years. And we do obviously, have the intake of our probationary officers every year, but also because we have a superannuation cadre, every year. But more importantly, I think what we've been able to do is that a whole lot of business benefits, risk management side benefits, early fraud detection, reallocation of resources. For example, one of our models which runs the footfall prediction or footfall analysis in the branches and then does the allocation of staffing, which is quite standard even in call centers. We've been able to very productively and usefully deploy that to be able to unlock those efficiencies. But I think the largest gains for us have been on the underwriting side, towards risk management, and on the business side.
But no change in your hiring pattern because of these?
Yeah, so we are hiring more and more data scientists now.
No, the hiring is not coming down because of this efficiency that you're seeing.
See, the bank we are in a growing economy, and I think the bank has been doing very well and growing. So I don't think there's any reason for us to saturate at that level and say that we don't need to hire
I
people.
see. Okay, we're left with the last few minutes, so I want quick answers from all of you, starting with you, Dr. Chaudhuri, as what you see as the biggest risk and the biggest opportunity in what would be an AI-dotted future of financial services.
Opportunity.
And risk.
So risk, let me start with. It's essentially lack of governance and making sure that the right compliance framework is in place, because otherwise it can become extremely distorted. There could be a lot of deprivation. Inclusive growth could be a challenge. So a right governance framework is really the key. Opportunity, sky's the limit. So if we take care of the real governance framework, then India as a powerhouse can really make huge impact. We have the right skill sets.
Yeah.
Number one, right demographic dividends, right knowledge base. So essentially when we are looking at some of the estimates, right, the GDP can be impacted by trillions of dollars, right? And that's in the foreseeable future. It's not a science fiction.
Okay.
It is really possible to do that, considering the foundational educational background that people have and the ability to diversify into a changing environment, adaptation.
Okay.
Let's say, for example, that when we are talking about skill sets, coding, which used to be one of the most sought after skills, are expected to be obsolete, outdated in the next 3 to 5 years.
We can use English or Hindi or whatever we'd like.
So essentially, that really means that one has to be really nimble. one has to be really adaptive. Not only the educational system, every
Yeah.
individual, right?
Yeah.
And as a society, we are extremely resilient. We can see the workforce. They are being able to adapt themselves, train themselves to
Okay.
be able to gear up for the new challenges.
Okay,
So the sky is
Professor
the limit.
Ghosh, if I may ask you, if sky is the limit, what is the parachute we need to have?
Both industry and government need to invest in artificial intelligence. Right now, we don't have it. We'll fail. Majority of the time, any new technology, if you want to innovate artificial intelligence particularly, will fail miserably. But we need to have that buffer from the government research grant or from the industry, to say that it's okay to fail, but unless you fail, you will not. We need to create that environment. Otherwise it will not happen. Just to give you an example, if you go to Amazon, so I'm currently part of it also. So Amazon comes up with a futuristic problem, give it to a school and say, here is the money, solve this problem in next 5 years. You ask them back that what happened if I cannot solve? That's okay. Right?
Okay.
So we need that buffer.
India
to
needs the
create
capital,
that.
and hopefully the banks will provide it. Mr. Chugh, the biggest risk and the biggest opportunity in an AI-dotted financial services future?
I think cybersec for sure, and that again at a multi-tiered level. So the first thing, of course, is at a national level, because most of these models are offshore. Till such time that we have onshore our own indigenous models, the foundational models, which now are upcoming, including the cryptography protocols, which are today controlled, very tightly, largely by the US. There is a chance that, like Europe became a data colony, somebody else becomes an AI colony for somebody else. So we don't want that to happen. So that's at the national level that we need to secure our assets, but we need to build, and that is where research is very important. We need to bring in capital for that. We need to bring grants for that. The second level is at the enterprise level. So enterprises need to secure themselves, their perimeter around, when they use and deploy AI, for which, what, Dr. Chaudhuri said, we need governance. Like I shared with you in case of SBI, we do have a responsible and ethical framework. So at the enterprise level, you create the whole ring fence. Finally, at the customer level, there is a need to educate, like all of us have discussed, and also bring about this whole...
You can
data
win
privacy.
all the technology you want, but if I want to give my OTP, what are you going to do?
That is again a function of, education, that
Yes.
not to be greedy.
Yeah.
And it's all led by greed.
Okay, biggest risk and biggest opportunity.
To me, the biggest opportunity is with the amount of data this country has and with structured model, a farmer in some tier 3 or very small, unlocatable in a map location who is in need of a tractor loan might just get it at the tap of a requirement. That's
Okay.
the power of what data models and automated AI can achieve if we let it happen. But who's manning the watchdog itself could be a question. So yes, regulatory frameworks are important. I would go beyond to say one is framework and second is regular monitoring, for all the complaints bankers might have on the central bank. Last 2 decades, we have seen how we have grown is because our regulator has been extremely, proactive in bringing things, and that's what is needed in AI. A watchdog body which not just only stipulates what needs to be done, but keeps guiding and keeps creating those guardrails very proactively so that AI is used in the right fashion. I think both are the need of the hour right now for this opportunity to be tapped into.
Okay.
So I'm part of the SEBI committee for developing these guidelines. It's almost impossible to do it.
Why would you say so?
So, say for example, I'm a broker. I used algo trading and it did some bias. Now, how does SEBI do it? How does SEBI knows that it's happening? Because then SEBI has to go back to every algorithm I have created. Or SEBI has to say, you give me all the algorithm before you deploy, then my secret sauce is out.
Well, we're hoping the IIMs and the IITs of the world are going to help us find that solution. So final word to you.
Biggest opportunity today, young India, with the technology focus in terms of 1.2 billion mobiles, 700 smartphones. So AI would contribute almost maybe 15 to 20% of total GDP in years to come, another 5 years or so. And this is the right time in terms of buffers. We talk about the financial sector, we talk about the foreign exchange reserves, we talk about GDP. All sides, we are prepared to take a bold move at this point of time with a young India in a place. The greatest challenge which I see today with the technology is inclusivity and the risk associated with the technology. So my cyber crime, cyber frauds, we'll have to be very, very sensitive to all that.
Yeah.
And that is where I think the ethics would play a very vital role as far as the use of AI in any domain is concerned. And world over, now ethics and AI centers are becoming far more prominent and dominant as far as the use of a technology in the future is concerned. So I would say it's the right time for India to grab a big opportunity in a global economy with a technology as an inflow, wherein AI is bound to play a very, very vital role. We are ready with the skills. We need to keep investing in a technology. Skilling, reskilling, learning, relearning has to be the continuous process in that.
All right. I think we left for the last 3 minutes, so we could maybe take one question from the audience if someone has a question. Anyone? Okay. Okay, all right. I think everybody's been very well educated by this panel, so thank you very much, all of you, for being a wonderful audience. Dr. Chaudhuri, Professor Kumar, Aishwarya, Professor Ghosh, Mr. Chugh, thank you all for your time here. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you to all of the panelists, and thank you, Ritu, as well. Mr. Khara, can you please come on and hand over the mementos?